There are matches you win with skill, others with strength. But some, you win simply because you refuse to walk off the pitch. This is the story of one of those nights. A match that no one knew would change how the world saw Cristiano Ronaldo forever. The morning no one saw. He didn't tell anyone. Not the trainer. Not the coach. Not even the kit man who always noticed when something was off. Cristiano woke up that morning in his flat near Carrington, sweating through his sheets. His throat was raw, and his whole body felt like someone had poured lead into his muscles overnight. The kind of ache that wraps around your bones, not just your skin. It was match day. Premier League, top 6 clash. Televised. Headlines already written. And he had a fever. He stared at the ceiling for a moment. He could have called. Could have let the staff know. But part of him didn't want to give anyone the chance to doubt him. Because he knew what some would say. He's flashy, not tough. He's not built for cold nights. He's not made for England. So, he got up. Ice-cold shower. Painkillers. Water. Half a banana. That was breakfast. He didn't speak on the way to the training ground. His headphones were on, but no music played. Just silence and the sound of his breath, shallow and sharp. Inside the locker room, Rio cracked a joke. Giggs asked if he'd slept well. He nodded, lied. Wore the mask. Ferguson walked in, gave the lineup. Cristiano, starting on the left. He nodded again. As they headed to the tunnel, he felt dizzy. Not nervous dizzy, real, cellular dizziness. The world had edges. Sharp ones. His legs moved like they didn't belong to him. The tunnel was loud, filled with echoes and shouts and boots hitting concrete. He blinked hard. Once. Twice. Tried to bring the world back into focus. He didn't want sympathy. He didn't want rest. He wanted to play. Because there's something people don't understand about players like him. They're not driven by comfort. They're driven by obsession. He thought back to Madeira. The days he played barefoot in the streets, scraping his toes bloody. No water breaks. No real goals. Just bricks and bottles. He remembered that hunger. And he used it. The whistle blew. He ran. Maybe not at his fastest. Maybe not as sharp. But every step was fueled by something deeper than fitness. Pass. Cut. Sprint. Press. The first time he went down, the ref didn't blow. He got up. Wiped sweat from his eyes. Gritted his teeth. The fever didn't leave him. But it never beat him either. In the 37th minute, he made a run. Inside the defender. Diagonal ball from Scholes. One touch. Another. Shot. Off the post. Gasps from the crowd. He barely heard it. At halftime, Ferguson pulled him aside. "You all right, lad?" Cristiano just nodded. Fine. He wasn't. But he wasn't about to let that be the story. Because if he made it through this, they wouldn't remember the fever. They'd remember the fight. The match that tried to break him. The second half started, and Cristiano already knew it was going to be a war. His muscles screamed with every step. Not from exertion, but from something deeper. Like his body was sending warning signs he had no time to read. The rain had started. Classic Manchester weather. Cold. Relentless. Not enough to cancel a match, but enough to make you feel like your bones were soaked. He wiped his nose with the back of his glove. His breath came in sharp bursts, like he was running at altitude. But there was no time to slow down. The score was still 0-0, and United were pushing. A ball came in from the right. He jumped for the header, clashing midair with a defender. His shoulder hit the ground first, hard. For a second, the world flickered. But he didn't stay down. He got up, jogged off the knock like it was nothing. He'd trained his whole life not just to be fast, but to recover. Fast. Physically. Mentally. Emotionally. But as the minutes passed, the fever fought harder. His vision blurred. He blinked again and again. He started timing his breathing with the game's tempo, tricking his brain into thinking everything was under control. It wasn't. By the 65th minute, the coaching staff started looking toward the bench. Warm-ups began. He saw it. And that's when something inside him snapped, not out of anger, but urgency. He wasn't going to let his body write the ending of this match. Ball on the left wing. Defender in front. He stopped. Paused. Then exploded. Step over. Then another. Then 3 more. The crowd, cold and soaked, suddenly came alive. He cut inside. Laid it off to Rooney. 1-2. Return pass. Ronaldo inside the box. He didn't think, just struck it. Goal. Old Trafford erupted. His teammates ran toward him, but he didn't celebrate. No jump. No spin. Just a deep exhale and a short fist pump. Because this one wasn't for the cameras. It was for the fire. As they jogged back to midfield, Rooney whispered, "You all right, mate?" Ronaldo smiled faintly. Fine. He wasn't. In the final 10 minutes, he cramped twice. Pulled at his socks. Bit down on his mouthguard to keep from groaning. But he stayed. When the final whistle blew, he dropped to his knees. Not in celebration. In quiet survival. The cameras caught it. Headlines later spun it as humility. But the truth? His legs couldn't carry him another step. Inside the locker room, Ferguson walked by again. Looked down at him. "You didn't look fine." Cristiano looked up. Didn't need to be. And that was the difference. Other players played when they felt perfect. He played when he didn't. Because to him, greatness wasn't about conditions. It was about choice. The secret behind the headlines. The next morning, the papers were filled with one name. Ronaldo shines again. Match winner in the rain. Man of the match. No one mentioned the fever. No one knew. And that's exactly how he wanted it. At breakfast, he sat alone at Carrington. Hoodie up. Headphones in. Still no music. Just silence. The kind of silence you crave when your body is still recovering from something it shouldn't have survived. Wayne passed by, slapped him on the shoulder. "Hope you're feeling better, mate." Cristiano gave a half smile. "Much better." They didn't press. Because in that world, you didn't ask unless someone told. And Ronaldo never told. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He wasn't building a myth. He just didn't want excuses attached to his name. Later that day, a trainer checked his temperature out of routine. It was still above normal. "You sure you're okay?" he asked. Cristiano nodded. "I'm always okay." But in his locker sat a shirt, still wet from the game. Soaked in sweat and rain and effort. And in his bag, the match ball. Not because he scored a hat trick. Because he earned something harder that night, respect. That evening, Ferguson called him into his office. He didn't sit behind the desk, didn't lecture. Just stood by the window, looking out at the training pitch. "You know," the manager began, "you remind me of a few players I've coached. But none of them ever burned as hot as you do." Cristiano didn't know what to say. He never knew how to take praise. Sir Alex turned. "But burn too hot, and you'll burn out." He let that sit. Then added, "Or you'll light the world on fire." Cristiano didn't respond. Because deep down, He already knew which one he'd choose. That night, alone again in his flat, he lay in bed, this time under dry sheets, body still sore but heartbeat steady. He pulled out his notebook. Pain is temporary. He paused. Then added underneath. But silence lasts longer. And that was his choice. Not to be seen, not to be pitied, but to endure. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones you never tell. What nobody knew about that night. After the match, after the noise died down, after the last reporter packed up his mic and the last fan filtered out of the stands, the stadium was silent. Except for one figure. Cristiano had come back. He slipped through the back entrance, no cameras, no security detail. Just a hoodie, trainers, and a purpose. Old Trafford was empty now. Seats wet from the rain, lights dimmed to a soft orange glow. The kind of quiet that makes your footsteps echo twice. He stood at the edge of the pitch. Hands in his pockets. Just looking. This wasn't nostalgia. This was ritual. Because Ronaldo had a habit, a secret one. After the biggest matches, especially the ones that cost him the most, he came back alone. Not to relive the game. Not to celebrate. But to remember how it felt. He walked to the touchline. Bent down. Touched the soaked grass with his fingertips. Cold. He closed his eyes. In his mind, he replayed every second, the pain in his thighs, the burning in his chest, the moment the ball left his foot, the crowd exploding behind him. But mostly, he remembered not giving up. He whispered, almost to himself, that's what matters. Because medals rust. Headlines fade. But memory? Memory shapes you. He turned toward the goalpost. Walked slowly. Reached out, rested his palm on the bar. There was a dent. Barely noticeable. Probably from a match years ago. But to him, it was a scar. Just like the one on his shin. Or the one in his mind from every time someone said he wouldn't make it. He looked up at the stands. 75,000 seats. But right now, it was just him, and the ghosts of every version of himself that had stood here before. The teenager with too many stepovers. The showman with bleach blonde tips. The young man trying to earn his place. He whispered again, still here. Then he pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small piece of paper. Folded tight. He'd written it before the game. Not for anyone to see. Not even to read later. It just said, I play even when I shouldn't. He tucked it under the corner of the goalpost. A silent promise to himself. Then he turned and walked out. No fans. No applause. Just the quiet sound of footsteps echoing in the place where history is made. Because greatness isn't just about what happens when people are watching. It's about what you do when no one is. The fever was never the story. A few days later, the team doctor finally confirmed what Ronaldo had suspected. He hadn't just played with a fever. It had been close to 39.5 degrees Celsius. Viral. Dangerous even. Rest was the only prescription. But rest wasn't in Ronaldo's vocabulary. He trained anyway. Light drills at first. Then sprints. Then shots from impossible angles. He told himself it was recovery. But everyone else knew better. One afternoon, a youth academy player passed him in the hall. Barely 16. Wide-eyed. Nervous. Is it true? The kid asked, almost whispering. Cristiano looked up. What? That you were sick. That game, that you shouldn't have played. Ronaldo smiled faintly. Everyone plays sick at some point. Doesn't mean the game waits for you. The boy just nodded. And walked away with a different posture. Like something shifted. That's what Ronaldo noticed the most after that match. The shift. Not in the press. Not in the stats. but in people. The way teammates looked at him during practice. The way Sir Alex watched him longer after drills. Even the way fans chanted his name, it was different now. Not louder, but deeper. Not just admiration, but belief. Because there's a truth people rarely talk about in football. Talent impresses, but sacrifice inspires. And that night, under pouring rain, barely able to breathe, he didn't just show them what he could do. He showed them what he would endure. Years later, when he'd win the Ballon d'Or, reporters would ask about the match that defined him. He never mentioned this one. But when he looked into the camera, just for a second, there was that flicker in his eyes. He remembered. He always would. That night wasn't about glory, or stats, or trophies. It was about a decision. The decision to stay on the pitch when his body begged him to stop. The decision to become what the world expected, on his terms. And long after the fever broke, after the match faded from headlines, one truth remained. The fever was never the story. The choice was. Sometimes, greatness isn't born in spotlight moments, but in silent decisions. Like playing through pain. Or choosing to stay when no one expects you to. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel. More untold moments, more hidden truths, coming next. See you in the next episode of the Ronaldo Chronicles.